Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Hello Smut Squad and welcome back to the channel. As we know, the Super Nintendo had some great games, and some of them never got the spotlight they deserved. So today we're looking at more Super Nintendo games that I think deserve the spotlight shined on them. As always, if you think there's more, let me know in the comments below. And please give this video a like and a hype, as that is what helps this channel grow. You can also subscribe and hit the notification bell to be told when new videos are. We've also got the weekly podcast, and we also have a free Discord, so you can come over and join the Smut Squad. Right, let's get into it, shall we? Underrated Super Nintendo games, Part 2. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the Fighting Edition. Released at the absolute tail end of the Power Rangers craze, this wasn't just another cheap license cash-in. Developed by Natsume, the wizards behind Wild Gun and Shatterhand, it took the Power Rangers brand and stripped away the teenagers with attitude to focus entirely on the massive city-crushing lords. It's a masterpiece of colossal impact, delivering a fighting game that feels heavier and more deliberate than almost anything else on the Super Nintendo. It's a pure one-on-one fighter, featuring the giant mechs and monsters from the show's second and third seasons, which is when we all watched it, let's be honest. You get the Thunder Megazord, the Ninja Megazord, and even the Shogun Megazord, along with the villains like Lord Zed and Geldar. It runs on a modified version of the engine Natsume used for Gundam Wing Endless Duel, which is godlike, making it one of the most technically sound fighters on the console. We're just going to call this the Fighting Edition, so I'm not saying the whole thing, but the Fighting Edition captures the scale of giant robots versus giant monster better than most modern 3D games. Most Super Nintendo fighters like Street Fighter 2 are focused about speed and flighty jumps. Every step shakes the screen, and every hit feels like a tectonic plate shifting. When the Thunder Megazord swings its Saber, there's a startup and a recovery that makes you feel the literal tons of steel behind the move. Natsume introduced a brilliant auto-filling meter. Your power bar constantly fills on its own. If you time your special move for when the bar is at its max, they become enhanced. If you hit the super state, you gain access to a screen-filling cinematic finisher. It turns every match into a strategic game of waiting for the right opening rather than just mashing fireballs. The sprite work is also some of the best on the system. The Zords are massive, taking up most of the huge portion of the screen, yet they're incredibly detailed. The parallel scrolling in the background showing ruined cities and mountain ranges gives a genuine sense of scale. The sparks and explosions look thick and satisfying, mimicking the pyrotechnics of the actual TV show. And remember, because these are giant robots, almost every character has a weapon. This gives the game a mid-range tactical feel similar to Samurai Showdown. You're not just boxing, you're managing a reach of a spear, the arc of a sword, or the projectile path of Lord Zed's staff. The music is typical 16-bit Natsume. It's driving, metallic, and heroic, using the Super Nintendo sound chip to its fullest potential to create battle anthems that make you feel the fate of Angel Grove is actually on the line. The poor place, I'm surprised it's even standing. In a move that defined SNK boss syndrome from the Super Nintendo, the final boss is Ivan Ooze from the 1995 movie. He is notoriously broken and difficult to hit, making the final victory feel like a true accomplishment. He really is broken, honestly, it's a joke. He's the ultimate gatekeeper for a game that otherwise lets you feel like an invincible titan. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers The Fighting Edition is underrated because it was a Power Rangers game in an era where serious gamers were starting to ignore the franchise. But underneath the branding is one of the most mechanically tight, visually impressive, and satisfyingly heavy fighters of the 16-bit era. It's the closest you're ever going to get to piloting a Megazord from your couch. Robotrek. Released by Enix and developed by RPG legends at Quintet, Robotrek is often lost in the shadow of giants like Chrono Trigger. But look under the hood and you'll quickly discover it was decades ahead of its time, essentially acting as a Build-A-Bot workshop disguised as a quirky slapstick RPG. You play as the son of a famous inventor who moves to the town of Rococo. When a terrorist group called the Hackers starts causing trouble, you use your father's inventions to build a team of combat robots to save the world. It's an RPG where the main character doesn't fight, instead you deploy to 3 custom-built robots in turn-based battles on a hexagonal grid. There's deep customization here, because you don't just buy weapons, you invent them, combine them, and program your robot's AI patterns. It traded the Chosen One Destiny tropes for a hands-on Tinkerer's Paradise that rewarded players for being mad scientists. In most late 90s RPGs, you found a longsword plus 1 in a chest. In Robotrek, you find invention books. You then take scrap metal and gems back to your R&D lab to forge swords, bombs, lasers and boots. You can even combine 2 items like a shield and a sword to create entirely new gear, predating the crafting craze by 20 years. When your robots level up, you get data points, and you are completely free to distribute these into attack, defense, speed or energy. Want a glass cannon ninja robot that moves 3 times while the enemy breathes, or a slow indestructible tank that reflects damage? The game lets you break the balance in the most satisfying ways. Combat isn't just select attack. You can program specific macros or combos using button inputs. For example, you can set a robot to perform a //shoot combo that executes a single devastating turn. It turned the static turn-based combat into a rhythmic pre-planned execution. Coming from the team behind Soul Blazer, the game is beautiful. The colours are bright and saturated, and the animations, especially for the robots, are full of personality. Each piece of equipment you equip changes the robot sprite, giving you a visual sense of progression as your Mark 1 bucket bot becomes a Mark 5 war machine. While Final Fantasy was getting dark and broody, Robotrek was hilarious. It's a Saturday morning anime coming to life, featuring fourth wall breaks, bizarre NPCs like a man who thinks it's a bird, and a villainous group that feels more like Team Rocket than an actual threat. It's a cozy RPG that doesn't take itself too seriously. Battles take place on a small grid where positioning matters. You can push enemies back, surround them, or use the environment to your advantage. And because your main character is on the field, he's a vulnerable commander, so you have to manage your robots as a protective shield, adding a layer of tactical tension to every encounter. Robotrek is underrated because it was too weird for the mid-90s RPG market. It asked players to be engineers instead of warriors, and it's a playful, inventive, and deeply customizable gem that feels more like a precursor to games like Custom Robo or even Armored Core, and it's a game that values your imagination as much as your experience points. Dragon View. A spiritual successor to Draken, this Super Nintendo gem is often forgotten because it looks like a primitive 3D experience. But beneath the surface, it's a game of seamless ambition, blending first-person exploration, side-scrolling combat, and deep RPG mechanics into a package that felt like a next-generation Zelda 2. It's a game that dared to have 3 different genres at once and somehow made it work. You play as Alex, a young warrior whose girlfriend Katarina is kidnapped by a wizard named Goldrum to be used as sacrifice, and you must journey across the world of Korea to stop him. It's a triple threat game. You navigate a 3D world in the first person, enter towns and dungeons in a side-scrolling 2D plane, and fight enemies in real time, beat-em-up style combat. The transition here, well, there's no loading screens. Between the 3D map and the 2D action, you just walk into a cave or town, the perspective shifts instantly. Dragon View can be seen as a game of perspective fluidity. It took the clunky, confusing 3D of its predecessor, Draken, and refined it into a cohesive, rewarding experience. Years before Ocarina of Time, Dragon View gave you a 3D world to explore. While the graphics are pseudo 3D with scaling sprites, it created a genuine sense of scale. You're not just moving on an icon on a map, you're navigating landmarks, finding hidden caves by sight, and watching the horizon for your next destination. Unlike the automated combat of Dragon View features a manual, high-energy combat system. It plays like Final Fight meets Castlevania. You have a sword and a hack's bill, can't pronounce that, and a returning boomerang blade, and you have to manage spacing, timing, and dodging. It's a snappy, responsive, and far more satisfying than the typical menu build RPG combat of the era. The dungeons are a brilliant mix of 2D platforming and 3D logic. You'll be navigating a side-scrolling hallway, find a door, and you're suddenly in a 3D room solving a puzzle. This perspective swapping makes the dungeons feel like an actual physical spaces rather than just a series of flat screens. Now, as you find new primary weapons and magic rings, the gameplay shifts. You gain the ability to burn obstacles, freeze water, or reach distant switches. It captures that Metroidvania itch of seeing a chest you can't reach and coming back 2 hours later with the right tool to claim it. The world of Korea feels ancient and slightly melancholy. The music is sweeping and cinematic, and the towns are filled with NPCs who have actual stories to tell. It doesn't rely on the cutesy tropes of many 16-bit RPGs, and it has a grounded, serious fantasy tone that makes you feel your quest feel urgent. Your secondary weapon, the Hackle's Bill, is one of the coolest tools in Super Nintendo history. It just has a shit name. You can aim it in multiple directions to hit switches or enemies from afar. Learning to curve the blade to hit a monster behind a shield is a small, skill-based joy that makes you feel like a master combatant. Dragon View is underrated because it was the weird hybrid released during the height of the traditional JRPG era. It's the missing link between the experimental 8-bit era and the 3D adventures of the 64-bit generation. It's a bold technical achievement that proved you could have a massive world and tight action without sacrificing one for another. Biker Mice from Mars. My god, did I watch this cartoon as a kid. If you watched this cartoon as a kid, put it in the comments below. Released by Konami during the peak of the mascot with attitude era, this wasn't just another cheap cartoon tie-in. While everyone else was trying to clone Mario Kart, Konami looked at their own arcade classic Rock'n'Roll Racing and decided to turn the dial up to 11. It's a great game of combat racing grit, delivering a high-octane, weapon-heavy experience that actually controlled better than the game it was inspired by. Based on the cult classic cartoon, 3 Martian mice, Throttle, Modo and Vinny, Vinny, as if they'd have that in frickin' Mars, race across Earth and Mars to stop the villainous Limburger from stripping the Earth of its resources. It's an isometric racing game. You don't just drive, you jump, punch, and blast your way to the finish line using character-specific special moves. The Konami polish is here. Unlike many isometric races that felt slippery, Biker Mice from Mars features tight, responsive physics that helps navigating sharp corners feel like a skill rather than a gamble. And Biker Mice from Mars took the perspective that many gamers found frustrating and refined it into a competitive high-stakes combat sport. In Mario Kart, everyone uses the same items. In Biker Mice, each character has a unique super move. Throttle has a speed burst, Modo has a screen-shaking crusher leap, and Vinny can turn into a literal whirlwind. Choosing your mouse isn't just about stats, it's about choosing your offensive strategy for the final lap. Between rounds you head to the shop. You earn prize money based on your performance, which you can spend on engine upgrades, better tyres or more powerful missiles. It added a layer of long-term progression that made the main tour mode feel like a career rather than a series of random races. And the tracks just aren't flat loops, they're filled with jumps, oil slicks and environmental hazards like earthquakes or falling debris. The isometric view allowed Konami to play with the verticality. Jumping over an opponent to steal their position was a legitimate satisfying tactic that felt cool every single time you did it. The soundtrack is obviously pure 16-bit rock. It captures the biker aesthetic perfectly with driving drums and shredding synth guitar leads. It gave the game an edge that sets it apart from the cutesy races of the era, making it feel more like an action movie on wheels. The biggest flaw of isometric races is the dynamical control scheme. Konami fixed this by giving the bikes incredible grip. You can drift around corners and use the jump button to clear obstacles with frame-perfect accuracy. It's one of the few games in the genre where you feel total control of your vehicle. And the game features multiple Bane Tour levels. As you move up to hard or expert, the AI becomes ruthless. They'll save their weapons for the exact moment you try and take a shortcut, forcing you to master the defensive side of racing, holding onto your own missiles just to deflect incoming fire. Biker Mice from Mars is underrated because it was a licensed game in a sea of shovelware. But beneath the Martian mice and the cheesy jokes is one of the most mechanically sound and addictive races on the Super Nintendo. It's the bridge between the simple fun of micro machines and the tactical depth of modern combat races. Run Saber. Released by Atlas and developed by Horrorsoft, Run Saber is frequently dismissed as a clone of Capcom's Strider, and I can really see why. But that label does it a massive disservice. While it borrows the ninja with a plasma sword aesthetic, it's a game about momentum, taking the stiff, arcade controls as inspiration and replacing them with a buttery smooth, high-flying movement system that feels better than almost any other action game on the Super Nintendo. In a polluted future, a scientist creates rune sabers, genetically enhanced super soldiers to save Earth. One goes rogue and the remaining two, Alan and Sheena, must hunt him down across a series of global hotspots. The gameplay is a side-scrolling hack and slash where your primary weapon is a plasma blade. You can climb walls, hang from ceilings, and perform a devastating mid-air somersault kick. Now with the move in here, you don't just walk, you slide, flip, and scale in the environment with the agility that makes you feel like a superhero from the very first screen. This game is about having that agility. It took the hard-as-nails ninja subgenre and made it accessible, flashy, and incredibly satisfying to control. While Strider on the NES was clunky and the Mega Drive version was stiff, Run Saber is pure silk. You can transition from a run into a slide and then into a wall grab and finally into a massive screen-clearing jump without losing a single frame momentum. It feels like a modern action game trapped in a 16-bit cartridge. Unlike most ninja games of the era like Shinobi or Ninja Gaiden, Run Saber features full two-player simultaneous co-op. Alan, lightning-themed, and Sheena, ice-themed, can tackle the levels together, coordinating attacks and covering each other's backs. It turns the game from a lonely struggle into a high-energy buddy cop action movie. The bosses in Run Saber are fantastic for their scale and creativity. You'll fight a massive biomechanical jet in midair, a giant mutant on a moving train, and a terrifying cyborg beast in a burning city. These fights often take place while the environment is moving or falling apart, adding a layer of cinematic tension that few other Super Nintendo games could match. You have a limited use super attack that clears the screen of enemies with a massive elemental explosion. Unlike other games where these feel a bit like a cop-out, Run Saber they're aggregated into the flow of combat. You can save them for those holy crap moments when the screen's literally filled with explosions and mutants. The game has a distinct, gritty aesthetic, from the rainy, neon-lit cities of Taj Base to the decaying, overgrown forests of Janda. The backgrounds are lush and detailed. It captures that 90s anime vibe, think Akira or the godlike Guyver, giving the game a dark sci-fi edge that sets it apart from more colourful platformers. And Run Saber isn't Nintendo hard, it's a game that wants you to see the end. It provides generous health drops and fair checkpoints, allowing you to focus on looking cool and pulling off flashy combos rather than memorising every single pixel-perfect jump. It's the perfect weekend clear that makes you feel like a master of the blade. And Run Saber is underrated because it was just labelled a clone before it was given a chance to be a successor and just breathe. It took a great concept and fixed every mechanical flaw, delivering a tight, beautiful and incredibly fun co-op experience. It really is the definitive hidden gem for anyone who loves high-speed action and 16-bit sci-fi style. Mega Man Soccer. Released by Capcom during the height of Blue Bomber fever, this game is often mocked by the bizarre jump the shark moment for the franchise. But if you look past the absurdity of a combat robot playing sports, you'll find a masterpiece of special shot strategy. It's a game that took the Nintendo World Cup formula and injected it with the DNA of boss battling RPG, resulting in one of the most chaotic and addictive sports hybrids on the Super Nintendo. Here, Dr. Wily sends a horde of Robot Masters to take over a soccer stadium, as one does, so Dr. Light sends Mega Man to stop them, fine, by outscoring them on the pitch. Fine, whatever. It's an arcade-style soccer game, and I will just say soccer game because the game is called Mega Man Soccer, okay? It just makes it easier. Okay, I'm not going to go Mega Man Football, it's Mega Man Soccer, so let's just call this soccer, whatever, don't shout at me, or you can if you want to. It's an arcade-style soccer game where teams are composed entirely of Robot Masters. You have standard passes and tackles, but the game revolves around special kicks. The hook here is the Mega Man loop. Just like the main series, when you defeat a team in Capcom Championship mode, you recruit those players. So you can build a team of Robot Masters, each with a unique element super shot. Mega Man Soccer is a great game of squad building chaos. It's less about the beautiful game, and more about managing a tactical unit of superpowered strikers. Imagine having Ronaldo, Messi and Paul Mullen all on the same team. In most sports games, stats aren't just numbers. In Mega Man Soccer, stats are master weapons. Need a defensive powerhouse? Recruit Concrete Man or Woodman. Need a speedster who can outrun the goalie? Get Quick Man. Choosing which Robot Masters to put in which position creates a deep team management layer that makes it kind of feel like a strategy RPG. Now the game isn't one with just fancy dribbling, it's one with violence. I like that. Every captain has a limited number of special kicks. Fireman shoots a ball of literal flames, Needleman shoots a ball that stuns anyone it touches, and Dustman shoots a ball that sucks defenders into a vacuum. Okay. Timing these shots to blow past the goalie is an exhilarating boss fight mechanic in every match. Now the game uses simplified high-impact physics engine. Players get knocked out, flattened, and sent across the screen. It captures that anything goes spirit of 8-bit arcade sports but adds a 16-bit flair. It's a game meant for the couch, where the goal is often just as much surviving as it is about scoring. And Capcom didn't just slap heads on generic bodies, every Robot Master has unique animations. Seeing Toadman hop across the screen or Pharaohman slide tackle with ancient power is a joy for the fans of the series. It really is a love letter to the NES character designs re-rendered in gorgeous Super Nintendo colours. Unlike a standard tournament, the Capcom Championship feels like a campaign. You start with a generic team of Mega Man and slowly build a powerhouse squad. You start with a team of generic Mega Man and slowly build a powerhouse squad. Deciding which team to challenge next and which Robot Master you need for your roster adds a just one more match hook that most sports games lack. The music is classic Mega Man and is intensely energetic. It turns a simple soccer match into a high-stakes battle for the fate of the world. It's easily one of the most underrated soundtracks in the entire spin-off library. Now, Mega Man Soccer is underrated because it's easy to laugh at the premise, because it is stupid. But underneath the weirdness is a tight, competitive arcade racer sports hybrid that rewards team synergy and resource management. It's the only game where you have a defensive line made of literal bombs and a striker who turns the ball into a buzzsaw. And finally, Weapon Lord. Released by Namco and developed by Visual Concepts, Weapon Lord arrived during the Mortal Kombat craze, but it refused to be a simple Gorefest clone. It's a game of bladed brutality, delivering a combat system so deep and complex that essentially invented the mechanics later popularized by Soul Calibur. It's a heavy, dark and uncompromising fighter that remains one of the most sophisticated experiences on the Super Nintendo. In a savage prehistoric wasteland, the Demon Lord Zorn organizes a tournament to find a successor. You choose from a roster of hulking barbarians, each wielding massive, uniquely designed weapons. It's a 2D weapon-based fighter that emphasizes clashing and parrying over mindless button mashing, and it features some of the largest sprites we've ever seen in the hardware. The game introduced blade clashing, where weapons bounce off each other, deflections, which are parries, and weapon breaking long before they became staples of the genre. Weapon Lord is about aggressive sophistication. It's a game designed for the hardcore fighting community, released at a time most console players were just looking for the next fatality. Now, most fighters of the era used a hold back to block. Weapon Lord introduced the thrust block, a directional parry system. If you timed your weapon swing against an opponent, you wouldn't just stop the damage, you create an opening for a devastating counter. And it turned every match into a high-stakes game of combat chess. The characters in Weapon Lord are enormous. They take up a huge portion of the screen, allowing you to see every notch on Kor's sword or the fur on Zorn's cape. The art style is Conan the Barbarian meets death metal, featuring a gritty, hand-drawn look that was far more artistic than the stylized sprites of Mortal Kombat. The game also features a unique body part damage system. You aren't just hitting a health bar, you can strike specific areas to disable opponents' movements or break their guard. You can even destroy pieces of their armor or hair mid-fight, making the battle feel like a literal struggle for survival. While it does have fatalities, they're much harder to pull off than in other games. You have to input a complex series of moves during the final moments of the fight. And because they're so difficult to execute, seeing a death strike feels like a genuine display of skill rather than just a button code reward. And the single player mode isn't a linear ladder. Depending on who you fight and how you win, the story changes. And this added a layer of replayability and lore hunting that was rare for a fighting game back in '95. And the sound design is heavy. When a massive axe hits a shield, it sounds like a car crash. The music is a low, tribal and brooding soundtrack that perfectly fits the Savage Land aesthetic. It creates an atmosphere of genuine dread and intensity that makes every victory feel like you just survived a bloodbath. Weapon Lord is underrated because it was far too smart for its own good. It required a level of frame data knowledge and timing that most 16 players weren't ready for. But for those who took the time to master its blade clashing system, it remains one of the most rewarding and technically impressive fighters ever made. It's the grandfather of 3D weapon combat trapped in a 2D world. And that's it for today, but still, I've not given you a question, so thank you for getting to the end. But today's question, because I like giving you guys these questions, because I like to read them on the screen, is what do you think is the most beautiful looking game on the Super Nintendo? I'll add my thoughts, but I also want to hear what you guys say. As always, I'll see you again in a few days from the video. Please make sure you hit that like and hype button, because that is what helps push this video into the stratosphere. And I'll see you all guys soon. You take care of yourself. My name's been Danny. Follow your dreams.